It's thinking about it. Taking a minute to connect. All right, there we go. We are recording. Well, good morning, and thank you so much for joining me this beautiful Friday morning. How are you?
I am doing good. I'm really excited. I'm really thankful. And I am really in a place of full intentional alignment, right? We are shifting into my favorite time of year, which is fall. I live for the fall. I live for the trees shedding all their dead weight, the leaves, and preparing themselves to bring forth new fruit. And so this is the time in which I kind of try to shed my dead weight and, exfoliate some dead skin and think through how I will be more intentional through the fall as we look for, some people live for the spring. I'm just one of those people who live for the fall to reflect more on where I've been and to be intentional on where I'm going. So I'm really doing good.
So tell us your name and what do you do?
Yes, so my name is Ada Renee Johnson, and I am the head of Equity Business Advisors and Google Recruiting. And what that means is I lead a team of equity business advisors who sit in the Empathy, Immersion, and Equity Innovation Lab. So we affectionately call it EI2 Lab, and we are responsible for instigating change. That's what we are excited about. That's what we have been charged with. And most importantly, that's what we are supported in doing. And when we talk about instigating change, we are seriously leading all the systemic transformations within Google Recruiting to dismantle any dominant norms by lifting the voices and the experiences of historically excluded talent to ensure that everyone, whether they're employees, anyone involved in the hiring process, whether they're applicants or candidates, all feel and experience our people, our processes, our systems to be inclusive, to be empathetic, and to be equitable.
You better say that. I used to have to get people to explain, and you already there. It's awesome. So tell us where you're born and raised.
Yes, I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, home of the Show Me State, which means I don't believe it until I see it. I am a diehard Cardinals fan, and I love all things St. Louis, from our food to our culture to our weather. I'm a fall girl, so I love to put on a nice pair of boots and a scarf, hat, and just live it up. I love St. Louis.
What was it like growing up in St. Louis?
Growing up in St. Louis for me was an eye-opening experience. I come from a long line of educators. So what was expected of me really didn't align with what was expected of me of my peers and their families did not align with my truths. So my peers and their families thought I was first generation this, first generation that. But in actuality, I'm third. My grandmother had a degree from Syracuse University. My mother graduated from Spelman College. My father graduated from Morehouse College. I'm what they call a Spell House baby, proud Spell House baby. And so a lot of the experiences that I had growing up were laced in a bit of privilege because my parents afforded me opportunities, but they kept me grounded. And they kept me grounded in understanding where I was from and how I got to where I was at that moment, meaning the sacrifices that my great grandmother made, moving from, San Antonio, Texas to St. Louis to clean houses on a private street that a lot of people were made aware of during the course of the pandemic, in that private street was the street in which you saw two white individuals come outside to meet protesters with their guns. My great grandmother cleaned houses on that street. And so growing up, my parents made me understand very clearly the importance of education and how to leverage education, not just get the education, but how do you leverage that education? And what's your responsibility once you obtain that education? It's to continue to keep going, but at the same time, look back and pull others along. So while what was expected of me of my peers, I did not meet those expectations, gratefully so. What was expected of my parents was 10 times more. It was always instilled in me that what my peers were able to get away with was not acceptable for me. I always needed to double down. I always needed to sit up straight. I always needed to say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, and greet individuals with a smile, whether I was happy or not. And so that is what my childhood was. My childhood was very much so laced in truths. My parents graduated from Sumner High School, all Black high school in St. Louis, where you have the likes of Arthur Ashe and Tina Turner, but it was all Black. And it was in an area called the Ville. And the Ville is very much so known for education, as well as Annie Malone Children's Home, which is an orphanage for African-American children, and the churches, the amazing structure of the homes, and then the hospital that gained a lot of knowledge, of shared knowledge in the community and outside as we look back on the historical references with Black children being stolen from their parents at birth because some of the nurses there could not have children of their own. So I come from rich history. I come from shared history, and my experiences have not just been those lived, but those learned. And I love to sit at the foot of not just my parents, but my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, to understand not just where we are, but how we got here. And how do I make sure that we don't go back to where we were?
Girl, you better stop. Oh my God. Amazing. Amazing. I'm always amazed when I've never, I haven't seen you before, but just to hear, it's like, okay, this is why. This is why people are like, you got to talk to this woman. This is amazing, amazing. So God is good, Lord. So tell us, well, and I think you've kind of shared a bit of it, how you decided to go into this field of work, right? I mean, because where you are in the type of position you're in HR and that area is your gatekeeper, right?
Mhm.
So what was your, how did you get into that, and what was your thought of why that was important for you to do?
Absolutely. So I I landed here, right? I did not intentionally chart a path to be here. And I landed here because upon graduation from undergraduate, I went into what I thought my path should be based on the paths that have been charted in the past with my family members, and that was education. But I'm here to tell you, teaching is like preaching, and you need to be called to do that. And I was not called to do that. And I learned that in the first 30 days of teaching third grade. And so I politely walked away from that opportunity because it was not my calling. And I needed to do some hard, deep understanding of what it is that I wanted to do. I had a long time dream of writing cards for Hallmark. And it was because my father said, under no circumstance do you ever let a holiday or birthday pass without recognizing the individuals in your life. And that is one small, inexpensive way of showing gratitude and appreciation for those individuals. And so I started at a very early age, writing my own cards, designing my own cards, and I kept it up through high school. And I would always hand deliver a personal card that I made, not just for my family members, but for my friends. And some of my friends are looking back on those cards saying, girl, do you remember when you made me this card? What were you thinking? I'm like, whatever was on the radio, I don't know. And so I knew I had some creativity in me. And so at that time, there was this huge push for management trainee programs. That was the thing. You know, Enron had demonstrated to my class that loyalty was no longer a thing for employees towards their companies. And so we began to think and process through, what does this look like for us and how does this play out in our lives? And so management trainee programs were the thing that came out of that experience. And it was, you go to this company and you learn everything about that company in all the various areas. And so I went to Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and I had an amazing 6.5-year run in the management trainee program, advancing through that program, becoming a management assistant, a branch corporate account manager. And one time I was asked to go to a college to help recruit, of course, recruit individuals that looked like me, because you could not tell a college educated Black man or woman that you are going to put on a suit, you're going to put on pantyhose and heels, a tie, and wash cars. You're not going to tell an educated Black student that. And so at that time, I was asked if I would go, and it was one of the most refreshing experiences that I'd ever had. And I looked at the lead recruiter, and she was like, so what did you think? What do you want to do long term? Do you see? I was like, I want your job, right? I want your job, because at that moment I realized you're doing good, but there's some gaps here that we really need to tackle, because all of our recruiting materials did not reflect the representation of our branches. And we weren't super intentional about where we placed talent when we hired historically excluded talent. And so I entered into recruiting. I advanced through the recruiting ranks, became a recruiting manager, launched a management trainee program at our call center, and began the initial works of remote working. Can you think about all the work that I did back in 2009 about remote working? And here we are, 2021, and it's a thing of the now, and never have to have this conversation again, right? Like, everybody's remote. And so at that point, I realized I've gotten all the accolades, I've gotten promoted, I've won awards. If I don't move out of this position, the people I've trained to replace me are not going to have this opportunity. And so I looked at my manager, he wasn't going anywhere. And so I took the leap, and I left Enterprise for Nestle Purina Pet Care, where I did a lot of the same work, and then went to the Fed. At the Fed is where I met this VP, James Price. He was my VP, and he stayed on me. But it was exciting for me because I sat in awe. Here, this is a Black man, vice president at the Fed, which is one of the most conservative institutions. And he had a voice. And just to watch him use his voice, I intentionally went to him and was like, I want to work for you. Like, I need you to pour into me. I was very vocal on what I needed. Then at that point in time, we made a plan. I worked for him. I was his senior analyst for the Office of Women and Minority. And that's where it all began. Here I am pulling EEOC reports. I am digesting what this information and this data was, and I'm putting together what they called affirmative action plans for how to solve for the data that we had. And I'm like, wow. And then there was an opportunity to become a recruiter. I'd already had that experience. I wasn't too keen on going back into recruiting. And so when I was asked, I said, okay, here's a chance for me to leverage the voice James has been doing in this space. And so I said, you're asking me to do this, and I already have a full-time job. So you're asking me, Black woman, to do 2 jobs. And while I'm not afraid of it, and I am not going to make an excuse as to why I cannot do it, I want to be very clear on what I will do, the boundaries I will set for myself, and what you're going to do in return, i.e. compensation. And that was my first negotiation of comp, and blew my mind how I'd grown up always hearing closed mouths don't get fed. But I didn't understand that in the corporate world. And seriously, closed mouths don't get fed. And I demanded more and I received more. And upon updating my information on LinkedIn is when Google reached out to me. And for me, having come out of college in the era in which I did, tech was never on the forefront of my mind. And what would someone who had a degree in English literature and a minor in math do at a tech company? My dad was like, "Did I pay for you to go to school and learn how to count words?" Literally, like that's what he asked me. And I'm like, "No, I don't count words, but I am very calculating in how I use my words." And so I entertained the call from Google, and it has been sky high since then. For the past 10 and a half years, I have experienced every nook and cranny of Google that I have ever had an interest in. I have done roles in cities in which I would have never thought I would be in. I started in the Bay, moved to Omaha, Nebraska to work out of Council Bluffs, Iowa. People look at me like, "You left California for Nebraska?" And I loved it, loved every bit of it. And it wasn't an upward move. It was a lateral move that I knew would propel my career tenfold, because we sometimes have to take a step back and understand, I'm going to do what nobody else wants to do and show them why they should have wanted to do it. Put this opportunity, put this location on the map, and then I'm going to go do what I really want to do. And that's what I was able to do. From Omaha, Nebraska, came to Austin, Texas, and the amount of net worth that I had coming into Austin, Texas was something nobody could have ever calculated on my behalf. And it was all because of my network. And I tell students every time I talk to them, your net worth is only as strong as your network. And so for me to be in the role that I'm in right now is actually a culmination of every single opportunity that I've had at Google, whether it was the first diversity recruiter Google ever had, whether it was a staffing business partner, HR business partner, employee relations. I am now sitting in a spot where I have seen equity or the lack thereof play out in each of those spaces, and now get to solve for it on the front end. So being in this space right now is so rewarding for me. And I know it's temporary, and it has to be temporary, because equity laced and centered in empathy is not a conversation we should be having 5 years from now. And I have to make this corporate America 10 times better for my children. And I don't want them to have to sit in this seat and do what mommy's doing. So that's how I got here. That's why I am here. And that's why I'm going to stay here until I work myself out of this opportunity.
Amazing. Amazing. If you had I've got a few questions from Tim Ferriss that I liked, that I added to my repertoire. If you had a gigantic billboard anywhere in the world, and you probably do, you know, and you could get a message out to millions or billions of people, what would that message be?
That message would be what I tell my team all the time: watch me work. And however you want to define work, watch me do it. It would be that simple.
You should have been a PR person. Oh my God. You're just like, seriously. Oh my God. Wow. How has failure or challenge or an apparent failure set you up for later success?
Oh, goodness. Can you define success without failure? I don't think that you can. And I'll make this personal. I'll step away from corporate and I'll make it very personal. I went through a few, what at that time I called failed pregnancies, before I actually was able to carry a child to term. And I know and believe in timing. And I appreciate, I'm a believer. So I'm going to tell you now, I appreciate God's not right now. And that not right now is how I view the world's failure. And so I could not be the parent that I am today if I had not gone through the expectation of being a parent and not being one, the expectation of raising a child and not having one, and being able to continue to pour into myself, because that's the problem. I wasn't done. I needed to grow some more before I was able to grow a child within my womb and birth tomorrow forward. And so I look at that as what the world defines as failure, and temporarily I accept it as failure to set me up for success. I am probably an older parent in my children's classrooms, and I'm definitely vocal, and I'm definitely participatory, and I'm definitely one who leads by example. And so when I have my daughter's teacher in kindergarten tell me that they are attempting to regulate how she speaks to her peers, I'm able to say, no, 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 I am raising a Black woman. We will not be regulated. And I want you to understand what the word regulate means, because I am not raising her to be in anybody's box. And I'm not raising her to dim her light so anyone else can shine. But had I not been prepared for those conversations, I maybe would have accepted that, asked her what she meant, and asked, as any parent should ask an educator, how do I make what's happening in the classroom an extension at my home? And that is not one thing that I would have been able to do. And so when I think about failure and I think about success, they're like right and left feet. And you can't move one forward until the other one has picked itself up and moved forward. And so I'm very thankful for the failures. I'm very thankful for my first flat tire at 16 with a dress on, ready to go out. And I called my uncle and he said, "Oh, I'm on my way." And he said, "Okay, now what we're going to do, no, I have a dress on." He said, "Oh, I have a towel for you." And I learned how to change that tire at 16. But guess what? If I ever get another flat tire, I know exactly what I'm doing. And that failure we have to look at as a road bump. That failure is a pause. That failure is a detour. That failure is what I believe teens now call plot twist. And I'm here for them all.
Oh my God. Amazing, amazing. What is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made? And it could be anything.
Wow, best investments that I've made.
Could be time, money, energy, you know.
One of the best investments that I've made has actually been to let go of plans. I am very much so type A. I'm very much so write it down, calendar it. And upon marriage, my husband was like, "You gotta let that go, live a little, let it go. You don't need an agenda for everything." I was the one who literally planned a vacation from touchdown to takeoff. And there was one vacation in which he was like, "I'll plan it." And he planned nothing. When I say nothing, he planned nothing. But in that moment, I enjoyed every single thing. And what I learned was when you plan, you forget to be present. And so the biggest investment was me not planning and being fully present. And the memories that I took away from that vacation far outweigh any vacation that I planned to the minute. Because as I planned it, and as we were doing excursions or events, I'm thinking about the next thing. So I'm not fully present in that excursion. And so it is actually just living in the moment and letting go and putting plans to the side. Now, there are times in which you do need to plan, but not everything needs to be planned. And so that's an investment. For me, it was really an investment that continues to, double down, and I'm reaping the benefits of.
This is one of those questions I really liked from Tim Ferriss. He asks, "What's an unusual habit or absurd thing that you love?" Remembering that everything is relative.
An unusual habit or absurd thing that I love. It is to color coordinate and height organize my closet.
Explain.
So, as a child, I have always color coordinated my closet. Now, I come from a fairly big family. I am the oldest of six, but I have a lot of cousin sisters. And in order for me to know if something was missing, I needed to have a hanger for everything, and I needed things to be in order. And I would always be made fun of. And my pushback was like, order and decency is next to godliness, and I need to make sure I stay close. But it was at one particular time I had this pale blue with navy blue polka dot shirt. And I had to have been a sophomore in high school. I wore a uniform, so I very rarely went into my full closet to pull out clothes. I was always wearing my uniform. And my cousin had come over and we were laughing and joking and having a really good time. And it was later that weekend, I believe, I went to go pull out that shirt. And, that shirt was in between the pale blue plain shirt and the pale blue striped shirt. It was the pale blue, the polka dot, and then the stripe. I'm like, my polka dot shirt is missing, but the hanger is here. So I look on the floor, I look everywhere because there's one hanger for everything. And then I call my cousin, I'm like, did you take my polka dot shirt? And she's like, oh my gosh, how do you know? And I'm like, because there's a hanger for everything and it was in order and I want my shirt back. But at that moment, I realized like, this is my thing. It's what makes me tick and it's what excites me most. And I have a 6-year-old daughter who the deal is I do laundry. And then when I call you, you need to come get your pile and you need to put it away. Well, she's very much into YouTube and she's very much into Netflix. And so on Saturday mornings, that is the ritual, clean house on Saturday mornings. And one Saturday I went in the room and she had all of the laundry like on the floor. And I'm like, Knox, what happened? Like, I washed these clothes. I folded these clothes. I gave you your piles. What happened? She was like, I saw on YouTube, this is really how you're supposed to fold it. And I opened her drawer and she had Marie Kondoed her entire drawer. And I was like, hey, you do you. You show me how to do it and I'm going to help you maintain that because it is clearly something she observed in me and how the closet is organized. And then she watches it on TV and she sees, okay, this is the real thing. And if mommy's going to take me seriously about getting nice things, I have to show her I'm going to take care of them. And so she does it. Shocked me.
6 years old?
6. Now she's going on 16, but she is 6.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've got boys. So those are those stories that I love to hear that I never get to hear.
Yeah, our son, he could care less. I just have to tell him this is the sock drawer. This is right. Like as long as I can tell you which drawer, he's just gonna throw it in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I have a niece and she's my favorite. She's my favorite. But she's like totally different from my boys. And I have 2 sisters and only one of them has a daughter. And so like, for instance, her birthday, she turned 20. She's at University of Georgia. And she's like, TT, I know what I want for my birthday. And she's like, but you don't have to give me all of it, but just a little. And I was like, okay, what is it? And she goes, well, I want to, she's taking physics or, something. She's in all, accelerated classes or whatever. But there was a course that she wanted to take to help her, like a, what do you call it? Like a prep course for, something. And I said, how much is it? And I think she said it was like maybe $300 or whatever else. And she goes, but I'm gonna work and I'm gonna pay for some of it. And I thought,
this is the class before the class so that she could be prepared in the class.
And I was like, send me your information. And I'm thinking, and my boys, oh my God.
Never that. More school? Like, this is not going to be, they're not going to count it. I literally had this conversation with my son earlier this week. Classwork that you didn't finish in class becomes homework. She didn't say that. She didn't say that. Look in my homework binder. It doesn't.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, your mom. Yeah, mom. That's not what it's supposed to do. And they have this thing where they say there is no homework, right? There is no homework. You're supposed to do everything. And I said,
Mhm.
"Yeah," just like you said, if you didn't do it at school or you didn't
Yeah.
finish,
Mhm.
then call it what you want, but you have to do it
You
now.
have to do it.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a blessing and it's a curse. That's for
A
sure.
blessing and a curse for sure.
So, in the last few years, what have you become better at saying no to?
Ooh. The last few years I have perfected. Don't bring me a Monday problem on a Friday. I have perfected it. I put it on a whiteboard. I made it a mantra and I held people to it, which meant I created a permanent boundary. And so that was the introduction to defensive calendar blocking. And once I implemented defensive calendar blocking, coupled with no Monday problem on a Friday, I feel good going into and coming out of every day and week. It's the boundary settings for me. And if I don't hold other people accountable to those boundaries, they won't take them seriously.
Okay. When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, or lost your focus, what do you do to get back to center?
Walk away from it all. Walk away from it all. Take a ride on the Peloton. Um, Eat. Probably shouldn't be doing that, but I eat. And this is something that people will probably think like, what? I iron. I iron. It is something about the motion, the steam. It helps just it helps me realize that if I apply pressure, I can straighten out any wrinkles anywhere. And so it's the ironing.
You need to write a book.
Oh my goodness.
No, seriously, seriously. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you have an old soul. I mean, and you said you're the oldest, right?
Yes, I am the oldest.
I'm not sure if I asked this one. What purchase of $100 or less? Um, did we ask that one? Okay. What purchase of $100 or less has positively impacted your life in the last 6 months to a year, or 6 month or recent memory?
Purchase of $100 or less that has impacted my life in the past. What have I bought? Mm, wow. It is amazing to have to think about $100 or less because you really can't get much for $100. I'm like a tank of gas, maybe. $100 or less that has impacted my life. Okay. This is so silly, but it's a small thing. So my husband is a huge coffee drinker, and in COVID, I took on coffee, and I took on coffee in a good way, and it meant you like I'm gonna drink it, but I'm gonna drink it my way, and it was with oat milk instead of whole milk or cream or whatever. Oat milk is amazing, and then I would use these skinny syrups, so it really wasn't too much sugar, and then I would do no sugar. But it was probably August of this year. I bought a frother. I bought a frother. And it is just so exciting to me to see how you can pour contents from one container into another. And that container heats up, swirls around, and gives you that same content, but it looks different. And I enjoy it without realizing the transformation from the refrigerator to the frother to my coffee cup. And so my husband was like, "Is it really that serious?" And I was like, "Yes." Can you imagine if there was a human frother? Like, what would you come out looking like? Like, what would you come out like? So I would have to say it's the frother. And I got it in August. Yes.
What life lessons have you learned?
What life lessons have I learned? That as an introvert, I trained for the pandemic my entire life, and I'm okay in it. And I have been okay in it. And I feel like I will be okay in it. I keep my circles small, and I intentionally keep my circles small because that's what was modeled for me. And my friendships are 30 years plus. And I have acquaintances and I have met people along the way. But if you don't align to me, then I have to respect our differences and maintain space. And so, even though as an introvert, I trained for the pandemic my entire life, what I did not train for, nor was I ever prepared for, but I'm thankful for the ability to process, was the impact of this pandemic on extroverts who I come in contact with all the time, and how I had to maintain space to hold and center myself and my truths, and being able to actually assess, realize, and process when their anxiety was coming on me. Because I was, why am I so anxious? Like, I'm in my own house. I am doing really well. I'm good. I have my coffee. It's quiet. My two coworkers who were in kindergarten and second grade, they already had their assignments. I had set them up. Like, why am I so anxious? And it's because I had opened the door to allow someone in my space without fully assessing what they were coming into my space for. And so I would have to say that it is the invisible boundaries within shared spaces, right? And I can sit next to somebody and at a dinner and still be in a zone. And I learned that and I process it. And I find that I am forced to continue to work on it every day. And I think that if we all take a step back and realize the impact of this pandemic on us as individuals, on us as people, on us as community, we'll understand how we will be better coming out of it. And I'm most thankful, and you did not ask me this, but I have to just share. I am most thankful for how we have normalized therapeutic help in the Black community. Go talk to somebody on your couch, their couch, outside, however you want to do it. And we have normalized it and we have made it a part of our everyday. And we have professionals who are now in spaces and places that we could have never dreamed of. And we have resources for our children. And I am just extremely in awe how we as a people took that faux pas and made it an everyday norm in our society. It just oof, it warms me.
Yeah, it's amazing how a lot of the companies said they just, especially government agencies, said they couldn't, you had to be in the office to do the job. And the pandemic showed that you do
You
not.
don't have to be there.
It made a liar out of a whole bunch of folks. So
It sure did. It made a liar out of locations as well. You
yeah,
have to be in California.
let me tell you. And like even with these interviews, I used to do them in person, and and now like yesterday I did 9 interviews, because I could do them back to back, right?
Yeah. I lost your audio.
Yeah, I was saying something you said. Um, before the pandemic, I worked from home, and I'm a disabled vet, so I actually like working from home. But one of the things that I had recognized, and it got even more so when everybody was working from home, is when you're like, my home is my castle. I love my home. I love and I enjoy my space. I enjoy my just the quiet, the some of the noise sometimes. But when you do Zooms and all these other things, you let these people into your space.
Into your space.
Popping
I
off.
lost your audio.
Um, yeah, it keeps popping off for some reason.
Okay.
Some little secret person. But yeah, it's like when you allow other people, in your space, and then you're like you said, you're like, what? Why am I freaking out? Why is all this happening?
Mhm.
Because, like you said, you let that person into your space, and now you're doing something different. You've kind of taken on
Yes, their energy.
their stuff.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, so being conscious of that, I've definitely had to be more conscious of that. And so, a lot of times when I'm talking to people and I feel something else, yeah, I tell her to make sure to call me, and tell her, I tell it's an emergency. You got to call your son or something, to get me off the phone.
Right.
I'm so sorry, I have to run. I've got to take this call.
Yeah, it'll just take over your day.
Yeah. So, you said you have kids. So,
Yeah.
how do you want your kids to remember you, or how,
You
or let's how do you think your kids will remember you?
My daughter and I had the most entertaining experience, and I want her to remember me from that experience. Um, Last weekend, we went to Dillard's, and I needed to return. I think I bought like 5 pair of shoes, and some were too big, some were too little. And it were 2 different orders. So 4 pair of shoes were on one order, and then there was 1 pair of shoes that was the exact same pair in a second order. And so go to return. He returned the first pair that was on the second order. And then he went to return the remaining 4 and said, oh, I can't return them. It's beyond 30 days. And I said, no, it's not beyond 30 days. And he said, well, my system won't help me. Do you want to store credit? And I said, no, I actually don't want to store credit because it hasn't been 30 days since the day that these shoes were delivered to my home. Quite frankly, I can tell you these shoes were delivered to my home on this day because that was the day I ordered this pair of shoes that you've already returned, because the pair, the other size was not right. And he said, well, you're going to have to take them up to customer service. And I said, well, I don't think that I should be forced to carry 4 pair of shoes up yet another flight of steps. Are you willing to assist me? And he was like, no, I'm with another customer. And I said, then can you call your manager? And he was like, well, she's going to tell you the same thing. And I said, that's fine. I'd like to hear it from her. And so in that moment, he went to call the manager, and I had a conversation with my daughter, and I said, sometimes people who are helping you cannot get you what you need. And so you will have to ask for additional assistance. And in this situation, I'm asking for a manager because I need to fully understand how this policy is being applied to our situation. She said, okay, mommy. So the manager comes, and the manager says, ma'am, I'm so sorry. That was the first thing she did. She apologized. And my daughter said, but we're not supposed to be sorry. And I'm like, I'll tell you later. I tell her all the time, I'm not raising you to be sorry, but you can apologize. So don't say I am sorry, because we take on the words that we say. And so the manager, apologized and explained to me what I was sharing with her was absolutely correct. It had not been 30 days from the day that I received the shoes, but for some reason, their policy is 30 days from the day you order them. And I said, you may want to think about changing that policy to 45 days, because if you order those shoes on a Friday, she said, I know, ma'am, if you order them on a Friday, we're not processing them until Monday. And I said, oh, wow. So she made it happen, right? And as we were walking out of the store, my daughter said, wow, mommy, so you said if you can't get what you want from the individual that you're talking with, you can ask to speak to their manager. And I said, yes. And she said, so if I ask you for something and you tell me no, can I ask daddy? And I said, absolutely not, because daddy's not my manager. So in that moment, I wanted her to realize that it's twofold. Management should not always be placed on a man. And in her, rationale, it was, and I think she would have said it vice versa. If daddy tells me no, can I come to you? But I needed to explain to her in that moment, we do not associate roles with gender. And then I also wanted her to understand you have a voice and you exercise that voice and you use your voice to get clear understanding of what it is that you need to walk away to make yourself feel good. And it's the same thing that I share with my son all the time. He's a bit older, so he is 8. And so he and I have different conversations. He is very much so on a Martin Luther King Thurgood Marshall kick right now. He gets because of them We Can boxes. And so this month's box was Thurgood Marshall. And so he's been walking around in this robe and banging a gavel and making sure everyone votes. But it is making sure that they understand the words they're using, the impact of their words, and the impact of their actions. And then to not assume roles because of gender. Those are the two key things. And, as my husband is getting my son prepared to learn how to take out the trash, I'm like, you go down there and learn too. You need to know how to do that as well. And so it's respecting historical gender roles and flipping them on their head, because everybody needs to know how to do everything.
Yeah, when my oldest, when he was younger, I used to make sure that he, he knew how to clean and he knew how to cook and, do laundry and all of that. And he was like 13. And because I'm like, I don't want you to be dependent on a woman for anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because I have 3 brothers. He's an engineer, but he went from my mom's house, to college. He was in college and stayed home to his wife. And then they were married for 25 years. And then they got divorced. And then he kind of like went to another person. So it was like he never
knew how to live without that female. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't want you to be that person.
Just a couple more questions. What are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? I'm most proud of my today. And I'm most proud of my today because it is a small indication of my yesterday, but it has nothing on my tomorrow. And so when I think about and I reflect on my favorite time of year, fall, and I and reflect on my favorite, under $100 purchase, my frother, I think about how I am in a season right now that it is amazing and unbelievable to me and to those around me, but better, bigger, bolder is yet to come. And so I'm most proud of how I am receiving today and reflecting on yesterday, but how I am looking forward to tomorrow.
Absolutely. What's your superpower?
My superpower. My superpower is what my parents said that they paid for me to go to college for, and that was to count words. I would say my superpower is my ability to leverage my voice and to be intentional in how I leverage my voice, when I leverage my voice, the tone, time, and tenor in which I use my voice. And I would say that words excite me, and they don't have to be written. They don't have to be a part of any poem or any song lyrics. I just get excited about words. And so when I think about the power of words, and I think about how I am calculated in how I use words, I would have to say my superpower is definitely communication, and artful, thoughtful, intentional communication.
Did you tell me who your favorite person was?
My favorite person. Oh, ooh, you didn't ask me who my favorite person was, and I can only pick just one. Um, my favorite person would be Mary, Jesus's mother. And I say that because I least identify with her, but I most appreciate what she has shown me and is teaching me every day. To have received the unexpected and birthed what she did, I think about all the unexpected opportunities that come my way and what I could do with them, and how I can birth forward new life in whatever it is that's given to me. So I would have to say my favorite person would be Mary, and it is not because of her as a person, but it is her as the carrier of new life. And it's probably recency because my children attend a parochial school, and so I'm helping my daughter understand Hail Mary. She has to know that by heart. And so it's just reflecting on, what does Hail Mary mean? And I'm not Catholic. I was raised Baptist, but Catholicism is very intentional, and I see that in everything. And so saying Mary is my favorite person is because of the light, the life, and the ability to handle the plot twist, right? So I feel like no matter how many times I'm introduced or reintroduced to her life and to her story, I'm learning something new, as I hope to do within my life and my story. This is so awkward. Can I just pause you 1 second? I have a delivery.
Of course, of course. Go ahead. No, of course.
Okay, I'm back.
Awesome. Awesome. And I just have a couple more questions.
Okay.
How do you want to be remembered after you're gone?
I want to be remembered for how I last left you feeling. And my intention is to always make people feel good. And good for everyone looks different. So I hope that my individual communications and individual interactions are personal. And so I want to be remembered by the personal interaction that I had with you last.
What is your favorite book or book you'd recommend?
Whew. My favorite book has always been Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart. I got a hold of that book in high school. I read it again in college. I am waiting on the day that my children have to read it again because I'm going to sit down and read it with them. I think it is a very relevant, timeless piece of artwork.
What do you enjoy doing in your leisure time?
I love quad roller skating. Yes, I am from St. Louis, and that is something that we grew up doing. And so I love to quad roller skate. I love to grab a good book and read, but most importantly, I love to quad roller skate indoors. And my heart dropped the other day in the store when my son said, "Can I have a new pair of skates?" Yes, you can. I am so excited.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Well, that is my last question. Well, this is my last question. What does it mean to be chosen as one of our top 10 for 2021?
What it means to me is that I am doing something right. It means that someone has experienced me how I intended them to experience me. It means to me that there is still work to be done and that I can relish and be excited in the moment. But I also need to turn the page and continue to rewrite history. What it means to me is that I have something to give to my children. And I have an ability to say, "Mommy did this for you so that you don't have to do it for yours." And so it means to me that my work has been seen, my work has been felt. I have been seen, I have been felt, and I am beyond appreciative. I'm going to tell you, as I read through all of the bios and researching people, I'm like, wake up, Ada. You're struggling a little bit with some imposter syndrome here. Where is this coming from? Why is it coming? And the first list that I saw were up and coming. I hadn't seen the top 10. So when I saw the up and coming, I sent a message to a friend of mine. I was like, "Helene, you are up and coming. Girl, I'm so excited for you. This is amazing. You're going to do some stuff people have never seen before." Girl, when they just hear a glimpse of who you are. And she was like, "Girl, what are you talking about? Did you see the whole list?" And I was like, "Girl, no, I just saw your name." Sorry. So she was like, "Pause, go back and read. We're celebrating you." She was like, "I'm up and coming, but honey, you are there." And I'm like, "What?" Like I literally lost it, right? And so here I am. But that's what life should be. That's how she should experience me. I'm celebrating her for being up and coming. And she's like, "Get off my phone. We celebrating you who you already became." Right? It's like, so it just means so much. And it is, for me, it is an accolade that will always give, because you're gonna make me cry here. This work is hard. This work is tiring. This work is the civil rights movement on a whole nother level. This work is slavery exemplified differently. This work is me. This work is my why. This work is my how. And this work has to be my win, because it can't always be. And so having been identified lets me know, girl, your purpose and your desires are so aligned that it's shining. And I am forever grateful to have even been considered, to have been nominated, to have been chosen. I don't know how I got here, but I'm thankful I am. And this is not enough. And so I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I have to stop. I'm not going to cry. But that's where I am right now in this moment. And that this is what I have been sitting with for the past week and a half. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it was I was reluctant to do the event this year just because of COVID, and it was just because we normally do each of the top tens, for their own reception, and then we do the gala where we bring everybody together and do our person of the year for each category, and so with COVID, we kept having to postpone, and people were just emailing me saying, hey, when are you going to do it, who's on the list, and I was like, oh crap, we got to get it done. And so then we started the nominations, and people started putting sending the nominations, and then I do a lot of research and backgrounds on on everybody, just to make sure the list is valid. And then after the list is done, I send it to other people in the community, say, hey, what do you think about this? And they'll say, oh, this is you might want to put this, and it's I didn't know you, but there is a lot of people in the community who know your position and know you as a person, and I mean, just like I spoke to someone this morning, and I said, someone described you as like as a badass, and she had a bracelet that said badass, and I was like, you know it just shows you that what you're doing is, people see it, and and not only do people see it, but people in our community see it, right? And that's one of the other reasons is people who don't know you, we want them to know you, we want them to know that someone's up there fighting for us, and sometimes on both sides, because sometimes it looks like they're the bad guys, but
Yeah.
when you hear them talk, I mean, I talked to a guy, he's a Republican, he's, and he was talking about how he was one of the ones who got the big installation of the African American monument on the Capitol grounds. He's a Republican, and but when you on the outside, you could say, "Oh God, he's only for himself." But it took
It's the party,
someone
not
like
the person.
it took him inside to talk to somebody who valued him,
Yes.
to say this is important and we're going to put money behind it, right? And so I'm like, listen, man, our community is vast, and so there's so many people all over that we're doing so much, and so we're so excited. So I saw Jim Anderson. Do you know Jim?
Yes.
He's awesome. Jim's awesome. He was in a group. We were in a fellowship together, and so it was real cool to catch up with him as well. But yeah, so we're definitely excited. Hopefully, we'll see you guys on the 20th
Yes,
for
I
the
am
gala.
trying to negotiate some new time. We were expected to be out of town. Our children asked for an experience for the holidays. I'm like, an experience? How do you know about an experience? But that's what they asked for. My husband and I are working on how we can
Yeah,
rearrange that
yeah,
space.
yeah. We always go, yeah, like the Monday, Tuesday after, and spend the holiday away, because when you work all year, it's like,
Yes.
you just kind of want to just give your kids back some time, and
Mhm.
and they're spoiled, like you said. I mean, my kid wants to go to Hawaii, and like,
Well, luckily they
and
didn't put a price on it. They just said experience. So
well, I used to be stationed in Hawaii because I was in the military, and my son was 2 at the time, and so he always says, "Well, I never been to Hawaii." And I'm like, "Dude, you used to live there." He goes, "But I don't remember, so it doesn't count."
wow. Now, what branch are you in?
In the Army.
Okay. So my
Yeah.
father is a lieutenant commander in the Navy.
Oh
So
wow. So I was Lieutenant
that's how I
Commander.
learned how to
Yeah.
make a bed.
Yeah, and that's why I hear some of that in your voice as well, very direct, very good. That's good. That's good. Well, they did good. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Like I said, I know we've talked about a lot, but this has been a great, it's always great talking to you guys. It's amazing. It's like therapy sometimes.
My goodness. No, this has been an amazing conversation. Hopefully, I have been able to effectively
Oh,
answer all of your questions. You and I had never had an opportunity to meet before. Now you're kind of stuck with me now, because net worth. I need my net worth.
yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. And let me tell you, that's a big deal. It is and that's what people don't realize. And folks will call me sometimes, and they'll say, "Oh, well, such and such. Can you send me her number?" I'm like, no, no, because I have to ask them if it's okay. And
Yeah.
because just because I know somebody doesn't mean that, you can have access to them, right?
Access,
Because you,
access
you know,
granted. These are not backstage
yeah,
passes. No.
exactly. Because, I value you just like, for who you are and what you do. So yeah, I'm like, hey, babe,
Absolutely.
I can't give
Absolutely.
those, but yeah, well, I know, I don't know if Alvin called or
Yes,
not
so I
called.
received an email from
Okay, good.
Alvin. I am going to be responding to all of my emails.
Okay.
So I was trying to maneuver. I'm dealing with
Yeah.
3 deaths this week.
Oh,
It has been a heavy week, but this conversation has helped lift me and give me some excitement to get into my work. So I'm playing catch up today, and I'll make
for
sure that I
sure.
respond with everything that I need to by close of today.
Okay. Is there, because Jim works for Google Cloud, is it separate from you
Yes,
guys?
so Jim is Google Cloud and Helen is HR, so like frontline HR, and I'm Google Recruiting at the
Wow.
time.
Oh my
Yeah, so I literally just shifted into Google Recruiting. I was in employee relations,
God. Okay.
and so we're all in 3 different
Hmm.
organizations, all coming out of the Austin, Texas area. Well,
Hmm.
Jim is we one Texas. We'll just say that
Right.
we're one Texas.
Awesome.
So I believe what we are doing is trying to organize for the company to contribute, since there are 3 of us who have been
Right.
recognized
Yeah.
in the publication.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. And like I said, it's I think like IBM had like 7 or 8 people. They had only one top 10, but but it was like, I don't know how, because I mean, because we don't really look at those things.
Yeah,
We just look at the person and their
the
background
person.
because again, that's why we do these. I do these interviews because it's like, even though you have this great job, but you as the person is what people see, and
Mhm.
that's what you leave people with, right? And so we kind of humanize these superheroes, that are in our communities. So yeah. So well, we're definitely looking forward, and we definitely hope to see you guys on the 20th. It's always a great time, great energy. So and again,
Yes,
you get to see folks from all other areas of our community. Doctors, lawyers, and all these wonderful folks. It's just amazing. So
absolutely.
well, thank you. This has been a pleasure. Your parents did good, man. They did
Oh,
good. They
thank
did
you.
good. Yeah. That lieutenant commander, that's, you're exactly how I want my son to be, oh my God, amazing, absolutely amazing. But I recognize girls are different.
Girls
So,
are different, but what I will tell you is the lessons that you're instilling in him now, he may not exercise them in the present.
mhm,
When it shows up later, he's going to
mhm.
know how to respond.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I
he
mean,
will.
by the grace of God, he's at Dell now. So I mean, I'm
Yes.
very proud, very proud. But yeah, but Lord knows we went through some we went through some stuff, as we all do, right? And just God is
There's a
good. Let me
little
tell you.
mess in every message, so
Ooh,
he'll be
yes,
okay.
yes, Lord. All right. Well, thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you in person and meeting your husband as well. I can't imagine what your partner is. If I mean you're just a ball of fun, man. Just amazing.
He's me on 10 because he's the
Really?
extrovert. Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's
Never met a
yeah.
stranger.
But see, I don't. You seem like an extrovert. I mean, you're just so witty, and so yeah, it's just interesting because I heard you describe yourself as that earlier, and I was like, I don't know,
Oh
but
yeah,
but that's your comfort. That's your comfort.
it is
That's
my
your
comfort.
comfort.
So after this call, I will take some time to kind of say,
Mhm.
"Whew, you did it, girl." Like
Yeah,
you had the
yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
Because there was a bit of anxiety that came over me. But yeah,
Of course. And I have it with everybody, because one of the things that people do is ask for the questions, and I rarely do because it's all about you, and I really like the authentic person, because it really comes out. It's what you get, right? That's who
yeah.
you show up as. So, but awesome. Well, all right, I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you again, and you have a wonderful weekend with the babies because
Thank
Halloween
you.
is their weekend, right?
I know it is
Pray,
their weekend, so I need to
pray
decorate my front porch.
Yeah, pray for my 14-year-old. He's still trying not to get me to go trick or treating with him in my Wonder Woman outfit. He was like,
Oh
"Mom,
wow.
Can you just go with my friend's mom? Don't go with us.
I love it. He
All
may
right.
push you to the
I know.
side.
All right. Well,
All right.
it's a pleasure. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, have a good one.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.